All right, this is a review video for the midterm project. On this video, I've got two of you, Delaney and Chris Nelson. And so on this video, Delaney, um, these are good starts. Everything looks good so far. I like that you're starting to play around a little bit with some of the softer things. That's kind of cool. This is kind of fun. It works well. Um, this is a neat idea. Just be careful of the bullseye effect that's going on right now, right? Everything's kind of going right into the center. And it looks like an eyeball. And so you might consider other ways of handling it, offsetting it like this, doing some other kinds of treatments with transparencies like what you're doing here. So these are kind of going in the right direction. This one definitely is heading in the right direction. Your colors are tending to be on the bit of the bright side, so you might consider possibly toning things down a little bit. But I like what's happening. I mean, I think especially considering the energy and the activity of the design, the colors I think are working appropriately for that. So I think that's all good. And this may be a design where you wouldn't even want to go down a softer palette road, because it is supposed to be anxiety or anxious or something like that. So that's probably, going in the right direction that way. I don't know about the pills. It's kind of funny. This little kind of swoopy shape is kind of fun. Um, you know, it's kind of fun. Yeah, I mean, I like that you're kind of playing around a little bit more of a subtle palette. That's kind of cool. I like that this one's getting a little bit more complex. You kind of taking this one and sort of taking it to the next level, and I think that's a good idea to do. So I think that's kind of fun. Let's see. Yeah, either one of these is fine. Yeah. Again, be careful with your compositions being centered. So try and think about moving the energy out of the middle and moving it towards one side or another, anywhere else other than the middle. You could explore enlarging this so that the shape is, let me just enlarge that a little bit. And that way I can kind of draw on it a little bit. Like, say, for example, here's your center point, right? And so obviously moving that any place else would be a good idea, or alternatively you can just take it and you can enlarge it, right, and then see what happens. So exploring those kinds of options might not be a bad idea. Let's see what else. Like I said, this one's starting to come along. You're going in the right direction with exploring with the color and all that. I think that's cool. With this one here, it's radical. This is fun. This obviously there's a lot you could do with color on this one. It has a tendency at this moment to be again on the edgy side. So just think about what you're trying to do with your color and what kind of emotion that has. But it's working. So I wouldn't say change that. I would just say maybe explore other color options to see if you can make it do something else. But that's pretty cool the way it is right now. So yeah, that's a good start. I think you're exploring some good stuff. You got the right idea. I would just say keep going. Try pushing things around a little bit more. Exploring possibly some blends. I'm not seeing you explore the overlap and the layer effects very much, so I would definitely explore that. That you might really get some fun, exciting things out of that. This design might really benefit from that, especially if you start kind of playing around with these overlaps, or if you put one whole shape on one layer and then put a blend mode on it, it might really kind of be wild and crazy. So you could have some fun stuff going on with that as well. So yeah, I think you're going in the right direction. So everything's looking good. Yeah, good. All right. Chris, all right, where are we at here? Okay, so at the moment, you're working with some very hard-edged shapes. Now you're starting to get a little bit more into some more complex compositional elements. Like what's going on here, you're playing with blend modes and stuff. That's cool. Okay, it's getting a little bit interesting in here. Oh, this is getting cool. That's good. That's kind of fun. I like where that's going. This is good. Starting to get some textures going on. A little bit of noise going on there. That's cool. Careful of doing too many weird things. That's something that it's starting to look like, oh, where'd that come from? So you want to make sure that whatever you add adds to the design, doesn't sort of go, oh, what was he thinking? Okay, so but these are coming along nicely. I like what's happening there. Okay, so here we got a little more design. Okay, you're loving those three-dimensional spheric effects. Okay, so what else? Okay, so again, try and get it to the point where it's starting to feel a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more painterly, I guess would be the word. These are still looking pretty vectorized, and you're still kind of playing around with that 3D distortion. And it's cool, it works. And so I would say just maybe don't get hung up on it. Maybe kind of look for other options as well. But out of this group right in here, I think this is probably going in the right direction. And that is probably, just from the sunset kind of look. I would be careful with the center point. Keep that out of the middle. It kind of does, even with this strong design here, it does tend to suck you down. So explore maybe moving that highlight someplace else. Also explore maybe some shapes underneath this, and then play with some blend modes on top of that, or some of the other effects. I'm not seeing you explore any of the strokes. There's so many interesting things that you can do with the stroke effects. So I might really encourage you to explore that a little bit further. You can do a lot with a couple of simple shapes and some really cool strokes and some filters. So I might say, why don't you go down that path a little bit and try that? Because let's see, from the top, it looks like you decided not to go anywhere with this one until, yeah, it looks like this just never went anywhere. And again, remember that, like I said, sometimes more shapes are not good in this design, especially when you can do so many things with the stroke effects and with the filters and the blends. Sometimes simpler is better. So I like that you're kind of playing around into these deep, sort of crystalline sort of structures. I think that's kind of fun. What you're doing here and here, that's all good. And I like what these ended up turning into here and here. So these are all good. But they're all essentially the same composition. So we need to kind of come up with at least two more. And we've got this one, which still feels like it needs to be a little bit further, needs to be pushed a little further. It doesn't have, it's still pretty simple. So again, explore the idea of like what would happen if you turned off all the fills and just played with stroke effects. What would that do? I don't know. It'd be something worth exploring. And again, you might even not need so many of these things. You might decide that you just want to, oh yeah. So anyway, maybe this one could get pushed a bit further. So you've got essentially this design, a variation of something in here. And then probably you need one more. So I don't know if you're going to take this one anywhere or not. But again, a simpler design might be a better option. So maybe you would take something like this and maybe just enlarge the whole thing a little bit. And then playing with the similarity of these sort of sail shapes, there might be something that you could do with overlap and transparency and blends and some cool stuff, and maybe some blurs on the, some blur effects or something along the edges, just to kind of soften it up and make it a little bit more emotive, if you will. All right, Chris, so these are coming along well. Nice job. Okay, you guys, good.